where the rubber really hits the road with AI is going to be a disruption of the fundamental business model of law firms, which is when we start to see less reliance on the billable hour. We've seen that in certain fields of work. Insurance comes to mind as one. And I think, sadly, with law firms, it's often more client driven than lawyer driven, which will produce some of these forces. What do you think about that?
Yeah, disruption to the traditional law firm model. It's probably already been happening in the last couple of years. First of all, a lot more clients may be getting a first pass from AI. There's pros and cons to that. Potential pro is that you can frame, and this applies to anything, it applies to medicine, etc. We can say that they might come in more informed to a client meeting. They might have a better awareness of their basic legal rights, the basic frameworks in place for them. It might also help, I guess we can say this colloquially, but ensuring that law firms are operating at a higher standard for the consumer so that the advice, the work they're doing is demonstrably better than what the consumer or that person going into a firm or that small business is doing on their own, right? Some of the negatives there, obviously, you might have stuff that's half baked or it's not quite the right advice, or a client already thinks that they know the position that should be taken, and the lawyer will then have to guide them and say, that's not correct. Here's why. A lot of lawyers I've talked to might be frustrated with that elements of that dynamic as well. Probably we will see a lot of firms moving beyond billable hour models, more package models, coming up with more creative ways to price their services. I think it's probably more hitting the small to mid end of the market more because the companies that engage with large firms are doing it for different reasons, more as like a large insurance play on court battles that could otherwise cost them hundreds of millions. So they're not too worried about the broader fee they're paying. But that's not as true on the lower to mid size of that market. I've already been seeing it, and I think it creates a lot of new competitive tensions that like firms have to be aware of, I guess.